Well, welcome in, Hawkeye Nation. Iowa women's basketball fans mourning the loss this evening in the Barclays Center out in Brooklyn, New York. We welcome the one and only Kachine Alexander to our show as always. And look at you, Kachine. You're sporting a new look. You got your hair done.
You see it, Corey.
Yeah, I see. I've been trained after 5.5 years of marriage. I'm supposed to notice these things.
That's what's going to allow you to stay married, Corey. When you see the change and you point it out.
With all due respect to you, Kachine, 6 years ago, I had no idea. You know, it all looks the same to me. So, anyways, thank you for being here. We're going to welcome in Kyle Huesmann of HawkeyeReport.com and get some takeaways from him here momentarily. But let's just jump right into this because I know there's a lot of disappointed fans. It feels like a game that just slipped away. I mean, late. Now, the turnover thing, we can get to that, obviously. I mean, that's the giant, humongous, morbidly obese elephant in the room. But in general, Iowa just let this thing slip away in the final 3 minutes. They were actually up 4 late in that fourth quarter and went through a spurt where they couldn't score. They couldn't stop Tennessee, especially in the mid-range. And that was all she wrote. The Vols stay undefeated, and Iowa falls to 8-1. Your thoughts?
Corey, it's very hard to not talk about the elephant in the room because that's the game. That's literally the game. There's a lot of things that I think I might have done a little bit differently in regards to that.
Okay.
Remember, I talked about Aaliyah Guyton and Lucy Olsen playing together. There's a reason of that being. I noticed that our ball handlers are not very good. When you run up against a team that is pressing or a little bit more athletic than you, you're going to need that. And so I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, of those two playing together. I think that There's a lot of scared people that were out there. I think when things kind of started to get a little crazy, I think there was a lot of deer in the headlights looks that I wasn't a little bit surprised about, honestly. But I need Sydney to get it together. I need Sydney and Falter from Big Ten tournament. I need Sydney and Falter from the end of the season.
What does that look like?
Urgency. I need her to be all over the floor. I need her to be rebounding machine. I need her to be aggressive. I need her to be confident. It's almost like she's second guessing every single move she makes, which is weird because even though you're coming back from injury, that's usually not the mindset. So I don't know what's going on with her personally, but it's a little odd in that aspect. But I need her. We need her back to that form. We're not going to go far in the Big Ten if we at least don't get her playing to that of what she was at the end of the year last year. And we talked about Kylie. You specifically brought up Kylie a couple games ago in regards to her 3-point shooting and her confidence level. And that's another person where is going to have to pick it up. Like in order for us to go anywhere, go far, she's got to be able to hit outside open threes. Like she has to.
1 of 5 is not going to get it done.
It's not.
1 of 5 for her. Not with the new
definitely
roles.
Not.
Yeah.
Not.
And to your point, a lot of those were good looks. I'd say at least 3 of those 4 misses were good looks.
Yeah, absolutely. And my hope, call me what you want. My hope is that Aaliyah Guyton keeps progressing. And I feel like if she does, we'll probably see Kylie not in the starting lineup anymore. Hot take.
Well, yeah, that is a hot take. I don't think it's a bad take. I think there's some hoops to jump through. But Jan has proven she's not. And Lisa was also the same way last year. We saw a lot of different lineups throughout the year. You know, I know some of us Hawkeye fans out here that are watching this show follow the men's team, and Fran, you can see some disparities there, some differences because Fran is very hesitant to make any changes in the lineup. And right now, fans are calling for Laji Dembele to be benched. Right or wrong, it seems like Jan and Lisa have historically been a little more inclined to make a change. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, and maybe you've got some experience from a coaching standpoint as well, but isn't that all culture too, and the standard that you set, the precedent that you set? Because if you set the standard of we don't make a lineup change unless we absolutely, it's like 1,000,000% obvious, then yeah, if your guy gets benched, it's got to be deflating. But if you're willing to be fluid and flexible, and that's part of who you are, and that's the standard and reputation you've built, it's easier to make those changes, right? I think if you built a reputation, even if you feel maybe it necessitates a change, your hands are sort of tied because you don't want to lose that player. You don't want to mess anything up in the locker room. Is that fair from your coaching experience? Have you dealt with that type of thing as an assistant?
If that is how you run your team or program, it's going to mess up people's mindset, right? But if your mindset from the beginning is, I'm putting the best 5 on the floor, whoever that may be, then you're more than likely players are going to be like, okay, let me step my game up because I haven't been playing well and I'm going to get benched. In regards to the men's team, my assumption is they know they're not going to get benched because he doesn't bench people. So at the end of the day, they're kind of like, oh, I had a bad game, but is it that big of a deal? Is there a consequence behind it? Because are you getting in the gym? Are you actually trying to fix your game? If you're not, then you're still going to be on the bench. And I'm going to find somebody who is going to produce. And then with the hopes of you figuring it out. But if you have that mindset, if he does bench someone, their mindset could go downhill because that's not something they thought would happen. It's a bigger blow, if that makes sense.
Well, let me just say this. The 30 turnovers is insane. Now, Tennessee is what I thought was particularly insane, and it was mentioned during the broadcast. Tennessee is averaging 28 forced turnovers, or they're turning their opponents over 28 times per game. Now, a little context there. It's early in the season. So they've played some teams like they played Samford University and turned them over 30 plus times, 38 times or something insane. So a little bit of context there, right? They've played some good teams. They just beat Florida State the other day, but there needs to be context. 30 turnovers is way too many. Is that fair? Even if your defense is the best in the country, that you cannot
you're not winning.
Win games that way.
No, you cannot.
So
and the fact that you only lost by is crazy. You should have got beat by 20 plus if you have 30 plus turnovers. That means you have 30 less opportunities than the team that you are playing. Now, again, maybe you get some offensive rebounds or something like that, and obviously they turn it over. But that automatically you're 30 behind of opportunities to score. That's no way you're winning that game.
All right, let's welcome in a third voice to the conversation because I know he's got to get some post-game stories written and content for his website. Let's welcome in Kyle Huesmann of HawkeyeReport.com. Kyle is, of course, very much involved with covering this team each and every night. And Kyle, I know you didn't make the trip out to Brooklyn, but you were covering it from your home base back here in Iowa. I know you've heard the first few minutes of what Kachine has had to say. Just your thoughts on a 30 turnover night in a game that, in spite of those turnovers, slipped away at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of what you guys have said has been right so far. I mean, 30 turnovers is a lot. I watched Tennessee the other night against Florida State. I kind of knew what Tennessee was going to bring in terms of pressure. So what Tennessee did wasn't surprising. I mean, they played, I think, 10, 11 players, 15 plus minutes. I knew they were going to be. Iowa knew coming in they were going to sub every 3-4 minutes, and Tennessee was going to go all out with their pressure during that time, and that's what they did. I was hoping Iowa would handle it a little bit better, especially with Lucy back into the lineup. I was someone that felt like some of the turnover issues in Cancun were because Lucy was out, and I still think that's true.
I was going to bring it up.
But I thought Iowa would handle it better tonight. But when a team is coming at you like the way that Tennessee does, they're going to they speed you up and you make decisions that you wouldn't normally make. And I don't think there was ever a point in this game where Iowa was able to settle down and have a sustained stretch where they handled the press. And I don't think they were ever able to find a time where they were able to slow it down enough to feel like they had a long enough stretch to feel like, okay, we figured out, here's what we have to do. And it just felt like the whole night they were sped up with their decisions and they were going a little too fast with the ball. They were making passes that have worked in other games, but passes that they need to know from watching film, from watching Tennessee before the game, that some of those weren't going to work. And they had some good passes here and there, but I just felt like when it really got rolling there early in the game, there was never a point where they settled it down enough to feel like, okay, we've done this now for a stretch of 5-10 minutes. Here's what we have to do it. Tennessee just kept forcing turnovers and kept forcing turnovers. And it just felt like those decisions kept compiling on each other. But yeah, I wasn't expecting 30 turnovers. I mean, if they hold it to 20 turnovers, they probably win the game. So I think that's the biggest disappointment, is that it felt like Iowa never got to a point in the game where they really were handling the pressure at all. It was just kind of a constant problem throughout the game. I knew there were going to be stretches where they had issues where they were going to turn it over because Tennessee's a good team when it comes to that. They're a very good team when it comes to forcing turnovers and getting points off of them. 42 points on 30 turnovers is about what they've been doing in terms of points per turnover. But that's a Tennessee team that I know that Jan Jensen's going to go into the locker room and say that outside of their pressure on defense, I was a better team overall. Iowa shot better. Tennessee didn't shoot well from 3-point range. It was the turnovers. So I think that's the most frustrating part, is it's a game where at the end of it, you look at it and it's really just that one area. It's the turnovers that you don't feel like any other area of that game. Tennessee was a whole lot better. I mean, they're a more athletic team. They're a quicker team, and that's why they're so good defensively. But yeah, I just think the most disappointing part is there was no point in that game where it felt like Iowa was starting to handle it. It felt like the same mistakes that were made early in the game were still made at the end of the game, and that's that's something that they'll have to go in and they'll have to watch film and make changes to, whether it's their press break or things here and there. But yeah, I mean, 30 turnovers is going to lose you probably every game that you have that many.
And Kachine, I mean, you don't get to 30 without everybody having a part. Let's just be abundantly clear. But then I as I look through the different numbers from everybody, 4 from Lucy, 4 for Hannah. You've got 4 for O'Grady, 7 for a falter. Now that I think is just abundantly egregious, right? So 4 for anybody is probably too many. Then everybody has 4. Then you have way too many as a team. But 7 for a non-point guard player. Now, she's going to be asked to handle the ball. We get that. I know she's a little rustier than everybody else, but she's played long enough now into the year where I think expectations have to be a little higher, right?
It's December.
Well, I know, but she's coming off injury. I'm saying she missed a lot of time.
Okay, it's December.
Yeah, no, I'm believe me, I'm not.
We've crossed that bridge at this point. Like, we're going into the territory of how much longer are we going to do this?
Well,
that's
I think
the territory we're in.
Point, you wonder about Aaliyah Guyton. So she played 7 minutes tonight. She is a ball handler. Did turn the ball over a couple times when she was in there. I thought her minutes. I thought she got. If you're going to be critical of Jan for anything, obviously. The turnovers fall on her as a head coach as well, and she'll take responsibility for that. But as far as rotations, a little bit surprised that we didn't see more of Taylor Strimlow and Aaliyah Guyton. I get it, they're freshmen. I get it. You probably are nervous playing freshmen in that moment at the Barclays Center against a team that's pressing. But your senior, your experienced players are not handling the ball. And Taylor Strimlow, Aaliyah Guyton are 2 players that handle the ball well. Now, we can talk about Taylor McCabe later. I thought she had her worst performance of the season. I mean, she did look inept at times tonight. Because if she's not making threes, and I'll ask you this question, Kyle, because I know Kashine's weighed in on.
Don't ask me.
Before. But there were a couple times tonight where I thought she looked soft, trying to go up inside, and she's just not comfortable anywhere other than when she's got a good look at a 3. And I'm extremely nervous with her handling the ball. 12 minutes seems like a little. Honestly, if you're going to take minutes away from players in a game like this where you're getting a lot of pressure, maybe take them away from Taylor. Your thoughts on that, Kyle?
Yeah, I think with the Aaliyah Guyton thing, that's a tough situation. I get where you guys are coming from with the whole thought of putting Lucy and Aaliyah on the court at the same time. And Jan mentioned it, early in the week. The issue there is Aaliyah Guyton has practiced for 2 weeks. She's been cleared from an ACL injury for maybe 2 weeks. So she has. I mean, before that, the last time she was playing basketball was in high school against high school basketball players who 90% of them are not playing college basketball right now. So I think the tough part there is that this game, where you would have liked to have Aaliyah Guyton and that the talent that she has on the court more, the problem is that she was out for 11 months. So it's going to take her time to be ready to go. And Jan Jensen mentioned early in the week that, once they get later into the year, maybe, middle of the season, later in the season, maybe you look at putting Aaliyah and Lucy on the court at the same time. But the fact of the matter is that Lucy and Aaliyah themselves have not practiced together a lot. Aaliyah and the whole team have not practiced together a lot. Aaliyah herself has been practicing full go with college basketball players for 2 weeks and has only played in 2 games against Rhode Island and BYU. Neither of those teams are the Tennessee Volunteers. So I think the issue there is that it's just a game that where you would have liked to have her, it came too early. If this game was in a month and a half, something like that, maybe you're more prepared. But I mean, she's been 12, 14 days full go since tearing her ACL. I just think it's too early to put her out there for 15, 20 minutes and in a position where also she's a point guard in high school, so she hasn't had a lot of off the ball time. Maybe you put Lucy off the ball. I think you could have done that if you wanted to play them. But I just think it's early for her to be in that high level position. If she had the full summer, the full fall, the exhibition games, the early few games, I think you could have certainly argued that she should have been getting more minutes tonight. But I just think this game came way too early for her to be ready to go with those players in that position. When she went 11 months without playing. I mean, again, this is her third ever game in college basketball and by far the toughest defense that she would have ever faced.
What about Taylor Strimlo? What about Taylor? Because she started in place of Lucy in Cancun, and maybe she's not a natural point guard, but she's a ball handler. Whereas, like I said, Taylor, who played 12 minutes, about double what Strimlo and Guyton played, basically what they played combined. What about Strimlo over Taylor?
Yeah, I think Taylor Strimlo definitely has a bigger argument to getting more minutes. And I think that would be the person that if I was going to argue for someone, that would be who I went for, because I thought Taylor Strimlo, I know she only played 5 minutes. I thought she boxed out really well in those 5 minutes. She had three possessions where she really boxed out and was part of the reason why I was able to get rebounds. So I think Taylor can definitely handle the ball better than, 100% better than Taylor McCabe. So maybe she's someone that could have helped relieve pressure on the press. Taylor had her own issues in the Cancun Challenge, specifically against Rhode Island. I think she had 5 or 6 turnovers in that game. But yeah, I think Taylor Strimlo definitely could have been someone that could have gotten more minutes tonight, because she did play point guard in high school. She's a very good ball handler, and she can pass the ball well too. The thing with Taylor is she doesn't, in my opinion, shoot the ball enough. You see her look to pass more. And, I'm just trying to see what Jan was thinking here. Maybe with the Taylor McCabe is someone that, if she is open, Taylor McCabe will shoot the ball and shoot a 3. And Taylor Strimlo, from what I've seen more often than not so far, has been passing up maybe some open looks. But yeah, I think if you're going to argue for someone to get more minutes, I think Taylor Strimlo would have been the one, because as you mentioned, she got the point guard minutes in Cancun. She's played all the games early. She had the full summer, the stuff like that Aaliyah hasn't had. And Aaliyah is going to get there. I absolutely believe that once we get into the second half of the season, into Big Ten play, Aaliyah Guyton's going to have a bigger role with this team. From a ball handling standpoint, I know Jan Jensen likes what she can do on the defensive end, and we've seen Aaliyah shoot the ball very well from 3-point range. But yeah, I think Taylor Strimlo definitely could have gotten more minutes. But to your point as well, like you said, how many people had, 4 people had 4 turnovers. Sid Fulter was 7, and you guys mentioned Sid as well. Someone that I'm gonna ask about next time we get to talk to Jan, just because I'm shocked, to be honest, because it's not the Sid Fulter that we saw in Big Ten tournament and NCAA tournament. She's rebounded pretty well. 8 rebounds today. I think she had 9 and 10 in the last couple of games. She's rebounded pretty well. But she's averaging 2-3 shots a game. She's got to find a way to get to the hoop, because she did that a lot in the postseason last year. She was able to get to the hoop off the dribble and do things like that. And I don't know what her health status is. Is she still dealing? Did they bring her back too early? Is it something like that? I don't know. I haven't asked, mostly because we've seen Sid struggle. We haven't seen something like this yet. But Sid's definitely someone that I want to ask about, just because she's someone that needs to be on the floor because of with the steps she's taken as a leader. If you talk to anybody on the team, she's the one that stepped up in Kate's absence as a leader. So she's someone that's got to figure it out, because they need her on the floor for that leadership. Someone cannot take the role of Kate Martin's leadership and sit on the bench for the entire game or for half the game. So they need her leadership, but they also obviously need her to play better than this. She's certainly someone that I'm interested in asking about, because I'm curious, what Jan thinks. Because me sitting where I am right now, I am completely shocked by the way that Sid has played so far this season.
Kyle, I want to cut you loose because I know you got to get to your post-game coverage, but I have one more question for you, and it relates to Iowa State, because obviously this game comes very quickly. You come home, obviously cross country. They just got back from Cancun here a few days ago, and now they're just kind of going all over the country and come back for a big game against the Cyclones. And this is an Iowa State team that came in this season, top 10 preseason, and they've fallen on some hard times. And but here's the thing at Iowa State: they're matchup nightmares, and it starts with Audie, obviously, with her size and how she can stretch the floor with her size. From what you know about Iowa State, what's the biggest key for Iowa as they come back to it's going to be a very good crowd? It's going to be a hostile crowd for Iowa State, but it should be an excellent opportunity at just kind of flushing this against a team that this will be a resume. I don't know where Iowa State's going to finish, but this is a resume opportunity, even though it's at home on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I think of is that depending on how you want to look at it. There's some people that'll sit there and say, hey, I mean, this is a spot where if you lose, all of a sudden it's, the doomsday people will say you lose on Wednesday, things can start to snowball on you because you got Michigan State after that on the road. But I think it's the perfect opportunity that if you go out and beat Iowa State at home on Wednesday, you flush everything. This isn't Big Ten play where a loss to Tennessee can hurt you in the standings. You go beat Iowa State on Wednesday, and you can just flush the Tennessee loss and try to move on. So I think that's the thing. It's not, it's not, I don't want to be disrespectful. It's not Northern Illinois. That's not who's next. It's not, a Toledo who you beat by 40, where you don't feel like you got it out of your system. You have a chance to go get a huge win against a ranked in-state rival, a team that was ranked preseason top 10. And if you can do that, you feel a lot better about yourself. The biggest concern that I have is that Iowa State is obviously Audie Crooks presents her own issue in the post with just her size and what she's able to do around the basket. Teams have been able to force her to a little bit more inefficient stats this year. But Iowa State in general, their lineup is has a little bit of length to them. So you wonder, how does Iowa do against that? That can force some turnovers as well. I don't have the stats up from last year's game. I think Iowa State forced their fair share of turnovers last year against Iowa. But I think the thing that it is that, now I don't know if Iowa State's going to decide to try to press it all, but I think it should be a lot easier if Iowa State decides not to press it all. Iowa's going to feel, coming off of a game like this where you had constant pressure for 40 minutes, Iowa should feel a lot better when they come out in those first few minutes against Iowa State and there's not someone in their face right after they catch the inbounds pass. There's not someone riding them all the way up to half court and things like that. So I think that's the thing that right now everybody wants to talk about, the turnovers and 30 turnovers and things like that. There's not, I would argue there's not a team the rest of the season that they face that will play 10, 11 players for 15 plus minutes and press for 40 straight minutes and throw hockey line changes at you. Tennessee's very unique in that way. So I think the biggest thing is that this game, the pressure that you faced, probably won't see again. You're going to see pressing, you're going to see pressure, but you won't see this exact type of game plan again probably the rest of the season. So I think that part of it, Iowa should feel a little bit better when they get out there on Wednesday and they feel like they can move. They feel like they can do some of the things that they want to do offensively. But I would say that I think Iowa State just presents – I think Addie Brown can be a little bit of a matchup issue with her size and her ability to put the ball on the floor. I don't know who'd be guarding her. I think Hannah Stolke could guard her. But again, I think on the offensive end, I think in terms of Hannah going up against Addie offense to defense, I think Addie Brown is good enough that she can defend Hannah Stolke. And Hannah's someone else. 1 of 8 tonight. Hannah's someone else that I would like to ask Jan Jensen about, just because I think we've seen areas where Hannah has looked like moving her to the 4 has been a little bit better for her, but she's really struggling converting around the basket. I'm just kind of curious what Jan would say in terms of how do you get that fixed, because they need Hannah to play the 4 because Addie O'Grady's played pretty darn good at the 5, but at some point Hannah Stolke, 8 points, 10 rebounds, but she's 1 of 8 and she had 8 points because she was able to get to the free throw line. If she can shoot what she did last year, which was 50-60%, she can easily be a 15, 17, maybe even 20 a night. But she's got to get better on the basket. I don't know if it's, she doesn't seem like she can finish through contact real well. So if she's not getting the foul calls, it just doesn't seem like she's been able to convert. But I feel like that more than Audie Crooks even. I think Addie Brown is someone that can challenge Hannah Stolke on both ends of the floor. And that's a matchup that I'm really interested to see on Wednesday. But I think the big thing to me is just that's a perfect opportunity if you get the win to really just kind of turn things and turn the page from this loss and move on, more than if it was a team that you come out and you beat by 30. Because a team that you beat by 30, you don't really feel like you get tonight's loss out of your system. You feel like you have to beat another good team before you feel like you get it out. And I think that's the perfect opportunity on Wednesdays to go beat that in-state rival, that top 20 team, and a team that coming into the season, everybody really probably thought Iowa State was going to beat Iowa this year. So if you can go get that win and really turn the page away from this loss, I don't think this loss needs to be bigger than tonight. I think there are certainly issues that happened tonight that I feel like could compile going forward. But if done correctly, if coached correctly, if the players do it correctly, this loss doesn't have to be more than what it was tonight, which was a bad loss where you turned it over a lot and you definitely should have won, but it doesn't need to be more than that. So I'm just interested to see how Iowa responds on Wednesday in a really big game, as you mentioned. Going to be sold out, going to be a great atmosphere. To me, like I said, just perfect opportunity to really wipe away tonight and move forward on Wednesday.
Kyle Huesmann of HawkeyeReport.com and our team over at On3. Kyle, I appreciate you being here as always, sir, and hopefully we're talking about a Hawkeye win. Let's see, Wednesday night around 8:30.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, good stuff. Check out Kyle's work over at HawkeyeReport.com. He'll have post-game coverage following this one and pre-game coverage prior to the big Cy-Hawk game on Wednesday. All right, lots of things to get to here. Kachine, where do we start? Where do we start? So right out of the gate,
phone calls. Is anybody on the phone calls?
We got one person. I'm surprised we don't have more. I think people
answer.
All right, let's go to our caller. We've got James on the line. James, welcome.
How you doing?
Doing all right, man.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing good, I guess. I don't know. Watching that game was a little frustrating, but that's how it goes sometimes. But
ugly basketball. That's all there. I mean, isn't that ugly
definitely.
basketball?
Yeah, it is.
How fun it is to watch
It
the
was
Hawkeyes.
for sure.
But 30 turnovers ain't fun. And they turned the ball over a lot down in Cancun too. But like what we've just been talking about, Kachine, we attributed that because Lucy was out.
Yeah. I don't know now though, because you had Lucy and it was still 30 turnovers. So that's yeah.
More than Tennessee's average. And they've accumulated a lot of that average against inferior competition. So.
Yeah, and the ones that hurt the most in Kachine can know this by, well, not from experience. Not saying you turn over, but you were a coach, so you know it from experience. Because I guarantee you, Kachine probably never turned the ball over that much. But
no, that's crazy.
But I'm saying the ones where they just threw it out of bounds, or the ones where they just chucked it down court and there was nobody down court. Those are the ones that are really frustrating. It's like you're not even throwing anybody, you're just chucking it out. You're throwing a high lob pass, nobody's even there. There's a couple times where they just threw it up, there was nobody there, and it just went out of bounds. I'm like, who are you guys throwing that to?
I don't know.
When you become flustered, it's like it's a hot potato. It's like somebody take it besides me.
No, yeah, I know. I'm saying it shouldn't be happening though.
Was this the first sign of adversity for Jan Jensen as a head coach tonight? I mean, it's easy to say yes because it's her first loss, but did you see adjustments from her tonight? Because I see a lot of people who are being very critical of Jan in the chat. And this is the first time we've heard, in the history of Iowa basketball, fans have been openly this critical about Jan Jensen because it's only her 9th game.
Let me say this. It's very difficult as a coach. You do take some of the blame. I will say that. But 30 turnovers, I don't think if Jan threw the kitchen sink at them, that it would have made a difference. And the reason why I say that is because when your team is flustered like we were, you could draw up the best play on planet Earth and they're not going to run it. Why? Because their mind is not where it needs to be. And so what you tend to see when coaches know their teams are in this is like, it's almost like you're trying to just make it by. Like you're trying to you're trying to get them to calm down. You're trying to get them to it becomes a mental game because that's really what's beating you. It's not the fact that it's X's and O's or, hey, we're not in the right spot. It's a mental game at that point. So as a coach, now you have to try to feed the mental and trying to figure out, okay, guys, listen, this isn't this isn't that. We know what we're doing. You have to reassure them, that kind of thing. And then some days it just ain't for you. I understand that. But I think that a lot of people tend to think that every thing that's going wrong can be fixed with X's and O's. It can't. So that's my take on it.
One thing that Kyle said that I just, and I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'll piggyback off it because he said, well, if Iowa State presses, you would have to be stupid from here on out to not send some pressure at Iowa. Until they've proven that they can break press. And I know Tennessee's really good at it, Cash. But am I wrong on that? You have to send some
you are.
turnovers.
It's
I'm wrong on that. Oh, wait, James. Hold on a second. Go ahead, Kachine. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Here's the thing. You're right in your assumption. The problem is you can't just make a pressing team. Because if you ain't been practicing pressing, everything's going to affect you. Meaning, when you press, it is taking more energy out of you, which means you're going to be, your legs is going to be shot, which means because you're not used to it. So in the grand scheme of things, that might be the best way to beat Iowa. But if you don't already have that in your bag and you don't already do that, you can't just decide to do it for this game because it's going to affect the whole rest of your game plan. You're going to be short on shots. You're not going to be missing bunnies. You're going to be missing bunnies because you're tired because of everything else because you haven't been doing that. So I get what you're saying. That's the way to beat Iowa, but you cannot just make a pressing team out of thin air. That doesn't work.
I'm not saying you become Tennessee. What I'm saying is you send spurts of pressure, just like you would at the end of a game.
You can do it in the half court. That's what I would do. If I'm a team, if I'm a head coach and I know we haven't worked on pressing like that, it's not part of our routine. I would then put together something for half court because honestly speaking, pressure is pressure. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You get like whether it's half court, whether it's a run and jump scenario, whether it's I'm in your face all the time. Like either way, it's pressure. So if I know I don't have a team that's built for that, I'm still going to create some kind of pressure, but within my team's chemistry, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've watched Iowa State like twice. So I don't know. They didn't really press then. So I don't know if that's something they have practiced. They just haven't brought it out or that's just not what they do. Because Audie Crooks can't do none of that.
Exactly. Audie Crooks. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. She is half the time behind the play.
That's why they don't press.
And stamina is not her strong suit. So if you send her, and I get it, but I guess what I'm saying is spurts of pressure, to your point, spurts of pressure.
Possibly.
And even
when she's out.
Well, especially if Audie's on the bench.
Yeah.
Use that opportunity, let her catch her breath. And you know, maybe you got some players that are not as offensive minded that you can utilize at the front end of that press.
Yeah.
Or you're talking about a half court press, but you've got to force I mean,
there's some Big Ten teams that are licking their chops right now.
And somebody asked a question here in the chat. What's the record for most turnovers in a game? I don't know what the Big Ten record is. I don't know what the college basketball record is. And I do know Samford, our guy Kyle, led me onto this during the game. Apparently, Samford University turned it over. Let me find that stat from Kyle.
With an M?
So, yeah. With an M. Let's see here. Samford turned it over. Let's see here. Find the number 37 times against Tennessee.
How much did they lose by?
We can find that out. Let's see. Tennessee, Samford. They lost by 48 points.
See, that's a positive.
Why is that a positive?
Because we had 30 turnovers and only lost in single. We say in single digits because we all know if something is 10, it was really like 8 or 7 because you started 5. Okay. So we're just going to say single digits. The fact that you turn the ball over 37 or 30 plus, we say 30 plus, you should be losing by double digits in the 20s with a 2 in front of it or more.
Okay.
So the fact that we turned the ball over like that and only lost by 7, that's something that as a coach, you leave saying, okay, this is something we can work on. Because at the end of the day, if it's like, you know, y'all turn the ball over 14 times and, you know, you lost in the scenario of that, this makes it even that much better because turnovers can be taught. That's something that we can work on in practice. The next week is going to be our guys that are in practice going to be all over them. That's all they're going to see is the practice guys are going to be all over them. Pressure, because I'm sure they weren't doing that before. So
why would they not?
Here we are.
Yeah. Also, shouldn't you have known that if you're playing Tennessee?
Well, I'm sure, but it's not the same. Because sometimes I say this nicely, but sometimes your players don't believe you. I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes your players do not believe you and they think, oh, they're guys. Like, it's not going to be like this. Then you'll get out there and they putting you through the ringer. So I've been through that. And I've literally told them, and I've had players tell me that they did not believe me.
What
and
do
I'm
you
like,
how do you respond to Dude Liberty here, who says we made 0 adjustments? Calling out Jan is more than appropriate.
I mean, sure, you can call out Jan if you'd like to. I mean, at the end of the day, though, she's not out there playing. She's not out there dealing with someone up your butt for 40 minutes. So at the end of the day, I'm wholeheartedly that all coaches should take responsibility. One, because part of that is getting them ready for it. Regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of even if they don't believe you, make them believe you, right? Whatever it may be. So there's some responsibility there. But like I told you before, it's a mental game over anything. Whenever pressing happens and all these turnovers happen, it's a mental game. It's not because you don't know how to pass. Like, that's not it. It's a mental thing.
No, for sure. And it'll be interesting to see because, people can throw pressure at you where a couple times down the court, they don't press and they press you for 3 or 4 possessions, then they don't press you and they press you for 3 or 4 possessions. So you also got to get used to that point of things, where you don't know what's coming. Sometimes, what I mean? Like they'll go part of the game without it and then part of the game with it. So you just got to know that's coming too. And hopefully we can learn from it. The one thing that I think that more adjustments for me was more mad was it seemed like they weren't ready for it. But like you've said too, and is that sometimes you don't think it's going to be as tough as it is, right? Like you guys are hitting on you, you're like, oh, it's not going to be that tough, and then it is that tough. But once you see it's that tough, you got to get used to trying to make better passes. Some of the passes they made, more of my point was just throwing it out of bounds. Like they just throwing it out of bounds, and that's more what it was more frustrating than me. Was just seeing them just chuck it out of bounds. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing. Chucking out of bounds ain't going to win nothing. But
no.
Wait a minute, you're telling me chucking it out of bounds? See, Spencer Petras taught me that chucking out of bounds is always the right.
It's different sports, though.
Can you not pick up the sarcasm in my voice?
Yeah, no, I always sound the same either way. I'm not turning either way, but no, it's a tough loss, obviously. But sometimes you learn from losses, and obviously you get 2 ranked opponents now, Iowa State and Michigan State, and who knows what Michigan State's gonna throw at you? I haven't watched any Michigan State, so I don't know. I don't know what they throw at you on defense, but obviously I can guarantee they're going to throw some press in there eventually at some point, right?
They usually do.
They got an Iowa State team coming to town on Wednesday.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying in general, like both of those teams, are ranked. So you got 2 ranked opponents coming up and you just got to play as good basketball as you can. But it was frustrating, obviously. But I don't know. I really don't know what to say in the fact of, like, I'm not out there, right? I don't know what they were going through every day. Like, I don't know what Jan was preaching. You know what I mean? I'm not at practice, so I can't really.
Nope. But
do that.
What we can do is when we talk about adjustments like that, whoever you put up there, whatever that quote was or comment, is that the most important adjustments are made in between games.
Yeah, for sure.
So if Iowa State, Michigan State, in the next couple games, you may not see it fully on display, right, against Iowa State, depending on how they play us. But if you don't see a change or adjustments or something like that, okay, now I will understand the Jan Jensen slander. Right? Like, now I'd be like, okay, but I mean, that's
I got a question. I'm in one of those random. See, I've been doing. This is post game number 2 because we got the post game. By the way, don't be going off the rails on me, Kachine. By the way, the Mavericks just won. Anyways, so back to what I was saying. Which coach would you say you were closest to on the Iowa roster?
Coach Fitz.
Okay, I kind of thought you'd say that. Which one was the other one?
Coach Fitz and Coach Gage.
Okay. And where is Coach Gage now?
Oklahoma.
Okay. All right. Answer my question. James, anything else?
Nope. No, not at all. We'll be interested to see how they bounce back on Wednesday, right? And then it's weird to see that game at 8:00. I know it's the Iowa game. I'm like, why are we playing Iowa State at 8:00 at night? But I'll be up for it no matter what. But
8 p.m. Eastern time?
No, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 Central.
9 p.m. Eastern time. That's giving you time to put the child to bed.
Can't wait.
But I enjoy you guys' night, and obviously,
Thank you.
Go Hawks no matter what. Obviously, you want to win games, but you
There
can't
it
win
is.
every one. So
True fan you are.
The way you lost is just the worst part about it. More than losing, just the way you lost is the worst part about it.
Yeah.
James, thank you, sir, for being here.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. All right. Before we get to our next caller,
James,
we've got
true fan.
here. Yeah, Ask a Bum with Super Chat. This is totally random, going back to the men's game. Felwell is a starter, period. Fran, wake up. So we'll honor the Super Chat, even though it's about men's hoops. And Brock says, this is not Brock Harding. Brock Long says, by far the worst play of basketball I've watched in a long time, if ever. Now, that might be a little hyperbolic, although I don't remember watching a D1 game with 30 turnovers. I don't personally remember watching one, especially involving Iowa. I don't remember Iowa turning someone else over, like even the Division II, Division III teams they play. I don't remember. Now, Iowa's never pressed like that, right?
30 turnovers is a headache.
Yeah. And to Sipa Rayan's point, Hannah did not play well. Missed a couple of bunnies around the rim. I thought in general she struggled, did not hit double figures in points, did get 10 boards, turned the ball over.
I won't go by the Hawks win by a mile piece. They could cut that out. But I think if she plays well, we probably win. But I wouldn't say by a mile. That's a stretch.
So you're not concerned. You voiced concern about Sydney, but you're not concerned with Hannah's play right now. She's been a little up and down, I feel like, offensively.
She's been up and down. At least she's had an up.
Yeah, that's fair point. Fair point. All right, let's go back to our call
listen.
line.
At least she's had an up.
That's true. Yep, she's been at the top of the roller coaster. She's just
at least.
All right, let's go back to our call line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line? Hello, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I was at the game today in Brooklyn. It was a good crowd, and I was just surprised. I know you've been talking about Jan, and I don't understand what they knew Tennessee was going to press them that much. I was surprised how poorly they handled it from the get-go, and then at halftime they made no adjustments, and they just remained completely incompetent in dealing with the press the whole game, and I was just surprised by that. What adjustments, either in the lineup or something else?
There's always adjustments being made. I will tell you that right now. Every coach gets together and we talk adjustments and everything like that. Like I was saying before, to fans, it looks like no adjustments have been made because when the girls start to get tight and they start to second guess everything, that's what happens. That's why people press. It's to speed you up. It's to make you second guess things. It's to make a pass that you normally make 9 times out of 10 look that much harder when it's really not. It's a mental game. And so I feel like there were some things that probably could have made our team's life a little easier, I could say, but that'll probably bring us down 5 to 10 turnovers tops. 20 is still way too much. So in my mindset, we had 18 at halftime.
If they only would have had 20 turnovers, they would have won the game.
I mean, maybe. We can always say because that doesn't mean they score. So,
True.
I mean, that is possible. But at the same point, 20 turnovers is 18 and a half is absurd.
Like I said, they were on track for if you want to add a few extras there at the end, they were on track for 27 turnovers and they were up 4 with
Crazy.
4 minutes to go. That's what's insane about that.
The game itself this was the weirdest game of basketball I've ever watched because, like I said, you have 18 turnovers at halftime. People say 18 turnovers in a game is too much. And you had it in a half, and you were still
let me just add something here. Iowa had, I just looked this up to confirm it. We kind of overlooked it because Lucy didn't play. Kachine, let's keep in mind, they played a Big 12 team down in Cancun. Now, it's not Tennessee. They beat BYU by 20, and Iowa had 23 turnovers in that game. How'd they beat them by 20 with 23 turnovers? What is Iowa doing besides rebounding the ball a lot better than they normally do and playing better defense? What are they doing to overcome until they actually maxed out in turnovers tonight? How are they overcoming such large numbers in that category against Power 5 competition?
Maybe that's what I need to look at. Because honestly, it should never happen. It doesn't happen. Like I said, it doesn't happen, which is why I said earlier that might be a positive. Now we're thinking about it, because if we cut down on those turnovers, now Iowa's, we like to say 14 or less, right? Like that's the 14 or less in a game is like where you want to be, 10 to 14. So if you can cut down on that many turnovers, could you imagine what our games would be like? And in a coach's mindset, you're almost like, oh my God, like that's simple. Okay. Like it's different if it was something so much more. But if it's simply just cutting down on turnovers and gaining experience, because we have a lot of people who haven't really played that much. Addison O'Grady ain't played that much. Sydney and Falter, although she came on strong, she still doesn't have like a lot of experience. Hannah, I'll give her that. Lucy, okay, I'll give her that. Who else?
Yeah, they're playing. Let's keep in mind they're playing 4 freshmen. I'm sorry, 4 with Ava Hayden. I wasn't even thinking about Ava. They're playing 4 freshmen. Now they played less tonight against that press, but yeah, no, they're very.
As a coach, you have to be. It's like one of those things where like we let one go, but at the same point in time, Jan and the coaching staff have to be thinking we are right there, like we are right there with all these damn turnovers. So in my mindset, I have to. One more time.
Is that why she didn't do any changes to the lineup, like have Guyton play with Lucy or anything?
I think so. I think in those scenarios, you got to roll the dice, whichever way you go, right? And I felt like in her mindset, she probably wanted veteran over anything. Again, I would not have played Taylor McCabe that long, but that's just me. But at the same point in time, I think that if we're going to use our freshmen and we're going to need to use them, they need to play. Because Taylor Stremlow has got to figure out how to play against this kind of pressure. You're going to have to use her later. So why not use her at the beginning of the season when, no offense, it don't matter. You get what I'm saying? If we lose to Tennessee, okay, great, whatever. But then you lose in the Big Ten games because it's taking her a while to get adjusted. That's why you play non-conference, so that you can get out everything you need to get out. You play different people, and everyone starts to feel comfortable for the season that matters, which is the Big Ten season. So I would have. That's the one thing I would say I'm critical about. I wish she would have played her freshman a little bit more. I understand why she didn't, but thinking about future and how much we are going to rely on our freshmen. What was anybody else going to do that Taylor Stremlow couldn't do? They was turning the ball over too. Hell, might as well try her.
Yep.
So that would be my only negative, I would say.
Hey, thank you very much. Hey, I appreciate your content. I also, if I can, just give a shout out to the New York Metro Iowa Club. We had a really good crowd at the game tonight, and a gathering in a bar by the Barclays Center before the game. It was great fun, and go Hawks.
Appreciate the sir, and appreciate you representing out in Brooklyn. Thank you, sir.
Speaking of Brooklyn, I wonder if Annie from Brooklyn was at the game.
I thought about her. During the game.
I wonder if Annie from Brooklyn was at the game. But she ain't in here, so I'm gonna go on a limb and say that she was at the game because she's traveling home because she's not in here. So that's what I'm thinking.
Maybe she'll call us on the way home. How about Basketball Rocks? Basketball Rocks says a 4-quarter full court press is going to cause turnovers. Yes, but not 30.
Not 30 though.
Not 30. And don't tell me they're averaging 28 opponent turnovers, because if you want to look at who they've played in their first 8 games, why don't we do that just so that it's not just what I'm saying without evidence. They did play Florida State, won by 2, but here are some of the teams they've played to get to that average. UT Martin, Samford, MTSU, that's Middle Tennessee State, West Carolina, and Liberty. So I don't want to hear about their forcing. Nobody in the Big Ten should be turning it over against anybody 30 times. Nobody in the Big Ten should be turning it over against anybody 25 times. And frankly, 20 turnovers almost any night is going to get you beat. Iowa had the men, I thought, had a chance to steal a game earlier today in Ann Arbor, a game in which Iowa didn't shoot free throws well. They got out busted at the glass, but they were better on turnovers. They turned the ball over. Let me give the men some credit. 4 times on the road. 4 times. 4. I'm going to repeat that one. 4 times and lost. And I say that Michigan, it felt like they turned the ball over a lot. They had 17 turnovers. That kept Iowa in the game. Now they pulled it out. Had Price Sanford made that last 3 in the corner. Iowa steals one with the minus 13, I should say plus 13 turnover differential there. But my point is 30 is absolutely insane.
That's crazy.
Have you ever played in a game with 30 turnovers for either team, Kachine?
Never. I don't even know what that feels like to throw the ball over that. I remember. It's a Lisa Bluter story. I do remember there was one time we had like 23 turnovers, 20 somewhere around there, high, right? Can't remember who we were playing. It doesn't matter now. But, I remember the next week in practice. You know the racks that have the balls in it. It's like 3 shelves of balls. Yep. That's all we had for practice. Anytime someone threw the ball away, the ball was gone. That was it. We couldn't get it back. And then once all the racks of balls were gone, we were running for the rest of practice. I'll never forget that. Everybody was pissed off. As far as like the ball was precious to us at that point. It was like, no, nobody is touching this ball. Like, you're gonna take care of this ball. And we made it with 1 to spare.
John Erland is coming to the defense of Sydney Falter. She's coming off a major injury, he says. It's obvious. I don't care what Iowa calls it. So maybe a little defensive there of Sydney Falter's play. My only response to that is there's a difference between coming off an injury, busting off some rust, and inhibiting your team. Like the whole Peyton Sanford thing, again, going back to the men's game. He was 1 of 13 from 3 against Utah State in Kansas City. He shows up to post-game interviews with his hand wrapped with ice, and he says, life is hard for me right now. I haven't been able to do anything. My wrist is killing me. My response is, why are you jacking up 13 threes? And let me take a step further. Why are you playing? If this is unless it's an injury that can't be fixed in the regular season and your team just can't deal with you being out, get your wrist right. So, I mean, if Sid's not ready, you can't be turning the ball over 7 times in a game like this and not be any factor offensively. I don't even know. She's maybe made 2 threes since she's come back. Maybe. I don't even know that she's done that. And she's very much like Logic.
Every game except like 1 or 2 tops.
Yeah, that's she's very much like Logie Dembele right now. To me, her shot, she does not look confident with her offensive game. It's not just a matter of she's not making shots and she's turning it over. She does not
even looking to score.
Assertive. Yeah. She looked much more assertive last year with Caitlin and that group and kind of being that 6th player off the bench. Let's go to our call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line?
Maybe.
Hello, you're on the air.
I swear I heard somebody.
Hello?
Sir?
Okay, sorry. This is my first time calling. I've actually been a long-time listener. Been a big fan of Iowa, and so just wanted to comment on the game. I think Dan's rotations are really confusing. I understand it's a very young team with a lot of freshmen, but I'm just really confused a lot of the time by her adjustments. Putting McCabe and Guyton in the game at the same time just didn't make sense against that pressure.
I agree.
McCabe's not a good bench ball handler, and Guyton's still young. And the other thing, O'Grady, she's been playing great this year. But in a game like this, it just didn't fit her. I was shocked by the box score, how good it ended up looking. Because watching the game, it just didn't seem that way. This game really, I thought, fit with having her not in the game and going with a more smaller lineup. I thought the best they looked, it was in the second quarter when Mulaney was playing the 4, and they moved Hannah back to the 5. And then they never went back to that again.
Well,
and, I don't know. It just seems like Jan, and I understand there's going to be a learning curve with all the freshmen, but it just really, she has to get a hold of how she's going to work these rotations, because some of the moves just didn't make sense.
So I agree, real quick, caller, and I didn't catch your first name. I hate calling people caller.
Bill.
What's your first name, sir?
Bill.
Bill. The only thing I would critique on what you said and respectfully disagree with, and I agree with you and Kachine, because Kachine agrees with you about the lineup with Guyton and McCabe. The only thing I would critique is I thought Iowa's offense was actually better when O'Grady was on the floor. I'm not saying she played up to what she had been playing, and part of that is the help side defense picked those passes off a couple of times. And the reason I bring that up is you look at the stats, the 2 worst plus-minus performers tonight. Some people don't like that stat, but it is a small indicator. The 2 worst plus-minus stats in this game were Hannah Stolke at -11 and Ava Hayden at -9. So and then you look at Addison O'Grady, and she had one of the 2 or 3 best plus-minuses. Nobody was plus, I don't think, in the game. Tegan Mulaney was, ironically enough, was +3, but Addison O'Grady was just -3. What do you think about that, Kachine? Did you think this was a game that Addison struggled, or was it more so Tennessee's speed in reacting to those passes, and maybe those passes not being as crisp as they had been, those feeds to Addison?
There you go. That's what happens when you have a team that's speeding up your team, is the post players get lost. And the fact that she ended up the way she did says a lot about Addison, because as a post player, you rely on your guards getting you the ball. And it's all relatively based on how well they give you the ball. It's how you can be efficient, how well you can be efficient. So I will say that the whole Hannah at the 5 and Tegan at the 4 thing, I think it's a give or take. Meaning, like you said, Corey, with Addison, you get more rim protection, you get different things like that, right? But also with Hannah at the 5 and the 4, we become faster. Now you've got 5 straight ball handlers on the floor. I use the term ball handlers very loosely in this game, but nonetheless, it's 5 ball handlers, okay? So you kind of have a give or take scenario. So I do think that maybe that's something that we probably should have tried a little bit more. Again, not taking away from Addison O'Grady, but you got to remember, Coach J is a what? Post coach. So at the end of the day, those are some of the things she's going to have to learn, is that although Addison is having a great game, what is best for the team in that moment, and switching it up, because maybe switching it up might have thrown Tennessee off a little bit more. Now you're able to do a different kind of press break or something of that sort. But a lot of the times, like I said, I thought Addison had a great game, considering as far as what, I mean, was being thrown her way.
to your point, Bill, maybe you are right, because Tegan Mulaney, she only played 6.5 minutes, and she did have the best plus minus.
She had never went back in the game after that second quarter, which I just didn't understand.
I think Jan reacted to a game in which there was a lot more pressure than maybe even she anticipated, and Iowa struggled with it so much more than she anticipated that she got gun shy from playing her young players. Because all of those young players, including a couple of ball handlers in Guyton and Stremlow, were relegated to the bench the rest of the way.
Correct.
It just hurt my brain every time I saw Addison O'Grady being the inbounder.
Yeah, that's crazy.
just hurt my brain. and when you're playing against a team giving that much pressure, you need 5 people that are at least capable of dribbling. And that was what I thought it gave them in that second quarter. You know, obviously Olsen getting in foul trouble hurt them a lot, but they overcame it because they weren't even down, you know, after her not being able to play in that second quarter. But I really thought that lineup with Hannah at the 5 and Moini, or even if they put Sid at the 4 and went, you know, a smaller lineup, because Tennessee wasn't that big and they were doing fine on the rebounding. But you know, it's always a give and take, giving up size. But obviously the turnovers and the pressure were their biggest problem. And I just didn't think that Jan ever tried to address that properly, in my mind.
Well, Bill, we appreciate you calling. Appreciate you listening. Sounds like you've listened to the show for a while, so we appreciate that.
Bill, you need to call in more often. You got some good takes.
I actually will. I was very nervous being a first-time caller.
Great job.
Don't be nervous. We're all I failed more than you can imagine. So don't ever be afraid of failure, especially on this show.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Bill.
All right. Good stuff here in the chat as well. We got good callers and good people who are commenting in the chat, including Christy, who says passes look slow. And did they look slow to you, Cash?
It's from your point of view, yes. The way I would see it as a coach is that we were too fast. So yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Can I just say one more thing about my Mavs, and then I'll move on. Just real quick, just one thing. Luka had a triple-double tonight, and are you aware, Kachine, that Dallas has won, I think, 13 of their last 14 games now? I don't know how much you follow the NBA.
Congratulations, Corey.
I'm just telling you it.
Congratulations. Is there anything else you want to brag about?
Well, they may lose I can't brag about the Hawks today, not the men or the women, and I certainly can't brag about the football team. Now, they may lose on Tuesday because Mavs are at OKC for that cup game. So that's going to be interesting. Get the little break in the middle of the season for the NBA Cup. How do you feel about the NBA Cup, Kachine? Do you even know what that is?
Yes, I do. I actually like it. I think it's a good mix because before nobody gave it about any of these games. It was hard to watch. I usually didn't even watch NBA until playoffs because it was just pointless. Or if it's like really like 2 really good games, Christmas Day or something like that, then I might watch that. But I will say the Cup has given a little bit more fire to some of these games in the middle of the season.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to our call line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey and Kachine, this is John.
Hey, John.
To the coaches show Monday, and Jen was talking about rebounding, and she said shout out to Kachine Alexander because she was one of the good ones.
Really? She said that, eh? There you go, Cash. There you go, Cash. Why are you looking?
John, you pulling my leg. Anywho.
What?
No, I'm serious. I swear on my mother's grave, that's what she said.
Well, that's random. Well, thank you.
Why is that random? You were a phenomenal rebounding guard.
I understand. Trust me. But I graduated
like
13 years ago.
So what? She coached a phenomenal rebounding guard.
But
and
I will say, though, Coach Jay, Coach Fitz, and Coach Buda always used to – that became like something they wrote when they were recruiting. They told me this when I was a coach, that they would be like cash level rebounding or something like that. So I thought that was funny. So clearly I made a mark. I love that for me. It's great.
On Iowa State, this is just an average person's opinion that watches basketball. When she's on defense, it seems like they can't move her, and then when she gets moving on offense, they can't stop her. That seems like her only asset. Is there anything more?
You talking about Crooks?
Yeah, Audie Crooks for Iowa State.
Well,
Kachine, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I mean, she's a tough guard either way you put it. She's a tough guard. Even Last year, she was very heavy on just burying you. And that was great. This year, she has added a little bit. She's got a little step back, kind of Dirk Nowitzki kind of thing going on. She's added a little bit more to her game on the block than she had previously. I'm curious on how that's going to go. But nonetheless, I still think Iowa State is very, very beatable for sure. But like I said, it's also a rivalry game. So even if they weren't ranked, maybe they were 0-7. I'd still be like, well, it's Iowa State, so we'll see. It's always been like that. But definitely beatable. I'm so happy it's not at Iowa State. Thank God for that. But overall, I think they haven't been shooting the ball very well lately. But they're very capable of shooting the ball. Let me say that. So they have that going from them as well. But I still think that if we can contain Audie without getting in foul trouble, I feel good. And not turn the ball over 30 times. I feel good about that.
And would you say that the biggest thing for Audie and playing against her as far as game planning, does it just come down to you've got to keep Addison in out of foul trouble? And is there a specific defensive approach that you have to take to her?
I would like us to mix up our man and zone. I don't think you could just play them in man because Audie's going to get comfortable. So I would mix it up with man and zone, maybe a make miss scenario, something like that. I would probably go in that aspect. You can't let Audie Crooks. You can't get Audie Crooks to have body to body. She wants contact. So in order for you to be able to play her effectively, you can't let her get that contact on you. You've got to move around her, which is not Addie's strong suit, mind you. But that's the part that's very interesting for me, is that you kind of have to move, or else she's going to bury you and your head's going to be underneath the rim. So, the only other option, like I said, is to do that make miss scenario, mix it up, whether you're in man or zone. If you don't want to do make miss, something like that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Wow, Coach Jay, that's so nice.
We got to go back. That's all cataloged on YouTube. We can find that quote. I'll find that quote.
Somebody in the chat said she actually said it. I was like, what?
Hey, John is a man. I believe John is a man of honesty.
That's crazy.
And Lonnie in the chat, she's taking the glass half full approach. Honestly, I'm glad we got humbled. Our gaping holes exposed. So now Jan can truly get the players' collective attention and help the cause, right the ship. So there's some truth to that. And USS Jimmy Carter, something is wrong with the falter. She stands with the ball on offense, does not move. What is up? Head is not right.
That's what we want to know.
A lot of people here in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of people really grilling Sydney Falter. And, she's not above criticism. I know people were really excited to see. I think there were some people, even me at times, before they landed Lucy Olson, and I could not disagree more with this comment earlier here from David, who says that, I don't know where it's at now. Maybe I shouldn't even put it up on the screen, but I could not disagree more with this comment. It should not be Lucy's team. She just transferred, not quite ready to be the team leader. They are so much better. Well, they are so much better with Lucy. They would have gotten.
It's Lucy's team.
How many turnovers would they have had without Lucy tonight? They may have had 40.
An NCAA record. That's what we would have had.
So, and I know they beat BYU without Lucy. They would have beaten BYU with Lucy. And this Tennessee team is just better. So
whose team is it then, David?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up.
If it ain't Lucy, whose is it?
I think there were some people, including myself, as Sydney Falter began to come on late last year, there were some people, including myself, that thought maybe she could turn into the Kate Martin.
Yeah, y'all was tripping. I could have told you that. No.
Yeah, it's so easy to say that now. It's so easy to say that now when she's averaging 4 and 2.
No. Now, I'm not saying that she wasn't effective, but I wouldn't have said it would be her team. Now,
it would have been her team. It would have been her team.
Based off of what we thought we had coming back, I would have said she probably would have took a leadership role. Sure, fine. But as soon as Lucy committed to Iowa, it was Lucy's team.
Right. Agree. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And just for the record, she is averaging not 4 and 2. She's averaging 5.6, and she's averaging 7 rebounds. So let's give her some credit. She is rebounding the ball.
Defensively, yes.
Yeah, she is rebounding the ball on defense. So there is that. But now her offense has not caught up to her. What is she, a junior? No, she's a senior. She's a senior. Excuse me. I did not realize she was a senior. Yeah, the clock's got to be ticking on her. I mean, I know there was a lot of excitement with her coming back this year. And maybe she didn't view it as her team with Lucy coming in. But Peter here in the chat says, I heard her praise Kachine's rebounding. Okay, so he's talking about.
No, she did say it. I gotta go find it. That's so nice. I gotta know what the question was. Like, what? How did I get brought up into this? I want to know what the question was.
All right, let's go back to our. We just lost Tyler, so we're going to go to our phone line. Thank you for calling.
Tyler, is that my?
Tyler will come back. I think Tyler. Let's go to our phone line though. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Cash Money. Who's on the line?
Is it me?
It's you, sir.
Yes, it's you.
Okay. My name's Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
And the thing is, I think we were just completely spoiled from the last 2 years.
Okay.
Because at the end of the game, who would win the game for us? Either Kate Martin or Caitlin Clark.
Yeah,
these people are not used to. At least the girls aren't used to being the ones at the end, finish the game and win.
Yeah,
lots of truth in that. And I think about 90% of the time it was Caitlin Clark, but they don't have. I mean, how valuable? I know this is kind of an irrelevant conversation to have, Kachine, but. Our caller brings up Kate Martin. How valuable would Kate Martin be to this team right now if she was here?
Very. One, for the simple fact that she's a ball handler. So there's that with experience. But on top of that, I think Kate has a way of creating calm. So, like, when you're the glue, that's another thing. Speaking of that, I don't think we have a glue. Let's start with that. So that's probably one of our issues. But we don't have a glue. Somebody that you could depend on, somebody that's going to show up night in, night out scenario. But Kate was that glue. She was a sense of calm for us. So that in itself right there would have helped tremendously.
No, we agree with you, caller, wholeheartedly.
It just seems like they're lost throughout most of the game. They think, where do I go? Of course, Cindy faltered. Wow.
Yeah, they got to figure out how to get the ball across against a press. I know not everybody can press, but especially late game situations, Kachine, that can also, if you're
that could be a problem.
Care of because Iowa's won a lot of these games. The first 8 wins have been blowouts. Yes. Most of them have been blowouts in the end. So when you're up by 5 to 10 points, especially dealing with a full court press, I hope this is a big learning experience because. Yeah, they did not really look like they had a great. Somebody mentioned earlier in the chat. At times they're passing the ball into strange spots into the corner of the court and along the sideline and just areas that you don't want to be trapped. And Tennessee's got speed and athleticism that maybe they haven't faced yet. I think this is probably the most athletic team they've played to this point. Is that fair, Kachine? Tennessee,
100%.
I don't know who else would be on that list.
Hands down.
Kansas maybe would be next. Well, who else would be on the list? Who would even be close? I don't even know.
Nobody. I don't think anybody we played is anywhere close to their athleticism, their length, their quick, nothing. I don't. So far, that we've played already, no.
Yeah, Rhode Island. I have no. I don't know. I mean, Drake is good, but they're not athletic.
They're not athletic.
Virginia Tech is not athletic.
No.
Kansas was underwhelming.
Yep.
Not to take away from Iowa's wins. I'm just saying. And hey, how about this? Stacy also confirming that Jan gave you props. Anyways, caller, anything else?
Yeah. Well, I also think we had no answer for that Cooper. That was from South Carolina.
Yeah.
She was just awesome.
Talasia Cooper, yeah. She was a sight to see in high school too.
Talasia. And now, why did she transfer from South Carolina? Was she not playing?
No.
She wasn't playing at all. And she gave them, she gave them 10 of 22 from the field, 23 points. They were plus 16 with her on the court, 6 boards.
She was cooking today. Hot grease. That'll do it. I gotta figure out what Dan was talking about. I gotta figure out what this question was.
Well, we appreciate you calling, sir.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger to the show now.
No, I won't. This is my second time.
All right.
I called at the last show last year.
Okay.
I was the one that was too excited.
All right. We were all spoiled. You were spoiled right with us. So don't be a stranger, and we'll look forward to call number 3. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yep.
Have a good night. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Couple things here in the chat. Looks like Tyler has not rejoined, so we'll give him a couple minutes.
Tyler.
Always enjoy Tyler. He says, this Polish guy says, I do not think we are right there. I think our lack of team speed and poor fundamentals are too much to overcome. And David says, all right, let's address this. If McCabe is
not addressing nothing. You can address it.
Is she in there? Well, Kachine's been ripped and ripped and ripped some more because of her criticism of Taylor McCabe. Now, I must say that I have been mildly critical of Cash at times and defensive of Taylor McCabe, primarily because there have been games, and I asked Jan this up in Sioux Falls, and she confirmed my suspicion that Iowa, specifically coaching staff and Jan Jensen, called Taylor out in the offseason and said, we need you to do more than just shoot. We need you to rebound.
Yep.
Now, I look at her stats tonight. She finished the night with 0 points, 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers, and had a shot blocked inside, 0 of 1 from 3, 12 minutes played. When I know David kind of said it, but when she is not wide open from 3, she's lost. She is lost, and therein lies the difference between Taylor McCabe and Gabby Marshall, because what Gabby Marshall gave you on defense was great effort. And although Gabby was not the best athlete or the quickest player in general, even laterally, had problems staying in front of the quickest of guards, especially in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Taylor, I don't think Taylor is either able to give that level of effort or has figured out how to give that level of effort. She does not like contact. All right. She had 1 rebound down low tonight, tried to go back up and got absolutely smothered. And that is, let me just say this. In her defense, you know what I'm talking about, right, Kachine, that play that I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. In Taylor's defense, it is a skill. I mean, I don't know. I didn't play college basketball, but I know from my playing days, it is a skill to learn how to like contact and how to, quote unquote, go up strong. That's not necessarily a natural thing. Can we agree? Like, not everybody can be Cash Alexander. You
can't. You gotta love contact to do that, which is why I didn't know why the hell she was going up anyway. The way you do it, dribble it back out.
Yeah, she's under the basket. She's under the basket, Kachine.
No, just because you are under the basket, means
draw
nothing.
a foul. If you're under the basket, draw a foul. I mean, she rebounded.
Yeah, but drawing fouls is also a skill.
Right, and she doesn't have that skill.
So why would you go up?
Well, that's proof that she doesn't have the skill.
That's my point. Dribble it back out.
To David, I agree with David. That's why I said earlier, in hindsight, and I'm not speaking for Jan because I can't speak for Jan, but maybe, I understand why she didn't play the freshman more, but maybe in a situation like this, in hindsight, look at the minute distribution, you think maybe I could have gotten Taylor Strimlow in there for 4 or 5 more minutes. And maybe that would have cut back on 3 or 4 turnovers. And it's not that McCabe turned the ball over a ton, but you do not want her bringing the ball up the court.
No, I don't.
I feel very uncomfortable with her bringing the ball up the court. In fact, I feel uncomfortable with her with the ball in general, unless she's catching and shooting. I'm just telling you, or she's in the fast. She can hit fast break transition threes. Here's another thing she does well. She gets out in transition on offense. The problem is Iowa wasn't getting no transition tonight. Finished with just 9 fast break points to Tennessee's 17. So they're not getting out in transition. So that limits the number of times she's going to be open from 3. So she has really struggled here in the last 2 weeks, Kachine. She's really struggled over the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
She has. I mean,
I know. Y'all was ripping me a new one at the beginning of the year. Okay.
I wasn't ripping you.
I said one thing I would say about Taylor, I get it. She's rebounding better. That's great. But when she comes up against some rebounders who like contact, she ain't going to be nowhere to be found. Then on top of that, she's soft. I've said that for 2 years now. Like,
people don't like that word.
Become tough. That does not happen.
I think that word is people really don't like that word. That's like they feel like that's a personal attack when you say soft.
It is. It is personal because it's about you. You are soft.
It is. It is personal. Yeah. All right. I love it.
You used the word describing her play today. That's just how she played.
I thought she looked. I mean, that play where she got smothered under the rim, I think was the epitome of soft. I mean, don't you think? Am I wrong on that? Don't you think that?
God. I actually screamed when I saw that she was going to go back up. I was like, no! And then just destruction. But nonetheless, I've said this before, and Steve, that's it. I'm glad. See, we're on the same page, Corey. That might be the best description of Taylor McCabe I've heard yet. She is his own buster. If somebody play his own, put her in there.
And Steve says she's not soft. She's short and not athletic.
No. I know short's not athletic. That ain't like her. That ain't got nothing to do with it. Tough is tough.
Gabby was shorter than her, and Gabby wasn't soft.
It's tougher than her.
Gabby wore them long eyelashes and looked like she was about to go to the red carpet, and she was not soft.
Exactly. No, Taylor McCabe is soft, y'all. I'm sorry. It's nothing. We always used to say soft as Charmin tissue paper. Speaking of Charmin,
Tyler, speaking of toilet paper, Tyler says he had a plumbing issue at the house, and that's why he had to jump off. Let's go to our next
Tyler.
Oh my goodness, it's Tyler. Tyler.
Hey!
Too much Charmin soft, right?
Well, this is in the clothes washer, so
should have bought the 1-ply, Tyler.
Yeah,
the 1-ply.
Yeah, it's this is bad. But anyway, I'm here now. First of all, I've got a few questions. The Kachine, this is for you because you've got the coaching experience. If a player on your team, like a Sydney, a Folter, came to you and said, "Listen, I'm out of sorts. I'm not, my head's not right or whatever," what would you as a coach tell such a player to try to maybe get her right?
I think, first of all, you need to figure out what the problem is. Because, like, with a basketball player, it's not just you're out of sorts. Like, that's not really a thing. There's a bottom line. That's just the masking of it. So what is the issue? Are you not trusting whatever your injury is? Did you lose confidence because Lucy's on the team? Like, what? There's something there. Whatever there is, we got to figure out what the bottom line is. Once you figure out that, then you can address whatever the issues are. So that would be my next question, is really trying to get to the bottom line of what the problem is or what is causing this, because you can't become these two completely opposite players like this. That player from the Big Ten is still there. It doesn't just disappear. So we got to figure out what is blocking that. Think of it as like writer's block. You got to figure out why you have writer's block, right? It's the same scenario. So you just got to figure out what her issue is and then address it as such.
Did you have to head to?
No, hold on a second. You can't let her off the hook that easily, Tyler. Where did this illustration about writer's block come from? Can I ask that? Where did that come from?
Yes, you can. So, like I said, you had last year, right, over here, and then you have now this player over here. There's a blockage between the two, right? So, like my mindset when I think of blockage.
Don't be talking about blockages once when Tyler just got done resolving a plumbing. My question is, where did the writer's block illustration come from? I understand the premise of the question or the illustration. I'm saying,
are you saying that didn't make sense to you?
I'm just trying to figure out why you came up with. It's not important. Anyways, I'm just trying to figure out where that illustration came from. Was my only thing.
It came in through Cash's brain, Corey.
All right.
No rhyme or reason.
It must be money. Go ahead, Tyler.
Well, I could see where she would say that because I do some writing and sometimes it just absolutely flows free.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's just nothing. You're staring at a blank page and you're starting to doubt your efforts and everything like that. And that's kind of what I'm seeing with Sid on the floor tonight.
See, Tyler gets it.
Well, yeah. But I mean, so if you did have, did you have a player like that on any of your teams, and how long did it take to get to the bottom of this on average?
I had one.
Mm-hmm.
She was struggling. She was a phenomenal player, great effort. She just couldn't get it all together. And that took a lot of off-court activities for her. Hers was more mental than anything. So it's a lot of lunches. It was a lot of one-on-one scenarios, really just pumping up what we already know, followed by like one-on-one film sessions and things like that. Because what I ended up figuring out is she thought she was doing way worse than she actually was, which kind of created the doubt. So a couple of those things, we were able to get her back on track. Every player is different, honestly speaking. I don't know if they've had this conversation already or not. So it could be anywhere from a week turnaround. It could be overnight turnaround. It really depends on the player.
So we were a lot of the callers and the commenters were talking about the concept of righting the ship. But as you mentioned earlier, we're in December now. It's only a few more days to the big Iowa State game. How can a coach or a coaching staff best right a ship in the middle of the season like this? How can you best solve a turnover problem, or this effort by Tennessee tonight where they're full court pressing for 40 minutes? How much time does a team have to address those kind of substantive issues in the middle of a campaign?
Turnovers can be adjusted through coaching in practice and different things like that. Like I gave I gave the example of what like Coach Bluter and Coach Jay and all those did when we had a crazy turnover game, right? Cool. So there's things to do that to change the mindset of your players. There's things that you can do that way. In regards to righting the ship, that's got to be player led, because they're the ones that are on the court together. They have to come together. They have got to figure out what's what. Again, I don't know when we talked about Kate Martin, that's one thing I felt like would be missing, because I'm 100% certain she is going to go take Sydney somewhere and talk to her and do all of those things. I don't know if someone's doing that. And it's hard to do that as Lucy because she's new to this program. She doesn't know. She doesn't have like a built-in relationship with these girls like that. She's new. So, and then you've got a bunch of freshmen. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know if there is anyone that would be helping her on the court. Yes, Corey.
Let me just say who I think it should be.
Okay.
It should be Addison O'Grady, because Addison has now stepped into an offensive role where her role on offense is a must night in and night out. And we didn't know that was going to be the case, but she's a senior. I think that's maybe her last step of growing, is taking the leadership role that might be lacking, not because of anything Lucy's not doing, but circumstantially based on what Kachine you just outlined. I think Addison maybe needs to, and I don't know what kind of a leader she is, but maybe she can transform a little bit based on how she's transformed her game and her role.
I can agree with that.
Okay. Coming up, the Iowa State game, did either one of you have a chance to kind of sample Iowa State matches yet? what's your scouting report on them? How can Iowa best prepare to beat them? I know we talked about containing Audie without getting into foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You said Audie likes the body-to-body contact. I guess I would start with her. I know that's a lot of questions, but who do we have that can best guard Audie? And I know we're talking zone situations, but that would be the best way to handle her, that would avoid that body-to-body contact that she wants and not get into foul trouble.
Addie's she's got to, whenever you're dealing with a player like Audie Crooks, she's going to get you at some point, right? Because she's just that good at using her body. But what can't happen is a lot of post players, once they get buried, they just assume it's a bucket. You cannot assume it's a bucket, because if she misses, you can't let her get a second one, because that's when the foul trouble happens. Is she gets an offensive rebound, you go to block it, foul. It has to be a one and done scenario. I know that's easier said than done, but it definitely has to be that. In regards to our defensive schemes, I talked about the make-miss scenario of that kind of nature. If need be, we definitely have to work on doubling this week, just in case. Just in case. We got to make sure we have that to be able to throw out there if need be. Offensively, we need to work on us. We need to work on those certain people playing in certain positions. What does it look when we have 5 guards? I'm gonna call it Hannah guard. Okay, so if we have Hannah at the 5, and we got 4 guards from there, what does that look like? Because I felt like today we clearly don't do that often. So what does it look like? Because that could be something useful. Hannah could use her quickness to get around Audie and be able to front and do different things like that if we need that. So, but our offense has to match. So not this week, we got 4 days. It would be working on us offensively, getting it back to Iowa women's basketball. Working on our defensive schemes, like I said, zone, making sure we know where we're going to double from. Now, coaches can decide what that is, whether it's a certain person doubling every time or it's always coming from the weak side. However we decide that, that's great. But working on those things. But the key is just working on our turnovers.
Speaking of turnovers, I mentioned I was at the Iowa State UNI game, and I mentioned in a previous call to you guys that Emily Ryan, Addie Brown were being put in situations by UNI where they were making a lot of foolish passes. One of the things I just wrote down as you were answering that is Emily Ryan. If ISU considers her their floor general, and I think they do, and I think with good reason, how do we best guard her to have her make those kind of mistakes with turnovers?
I think that I'm going to say normal defense. We're not talking about Tennessee, okay? Because I do think our defense was a little helter-skelter. Our normal defensive intensity is we get our hands on a lot of balls. We tend to speed other teams up a little bit. We may not be pressing, but our half court is where we're able to speed teams up. So I do think if we continue to do that we're going to speed up those players. And again, like I said on the reverse, Tennessee was able to speed us up enough that our passes into our post were not as effective. Same thing goes for Iowa State. If we can speed up their guards, their pass into Audie Crooks won't be as effective. So that's something that we have to look into as well in regards to creating pressure. You got to be all over these guards. Make their lives harder when they're passing in. If it's easy, they're going to pick us apart all day, every day. So that's definitely something that needs to be discussed this week.
Last question, then I'll get going here. You mentioned earlier about getting back to Iowa women's basketball as being the key, not just to the Iowa State matchup, but everything after that. With the loss tonight, and this is a good time to gauge that, do either one of you believe we know enough about this team now to know what Iowa women's basketball 2024-2025 is as far as an identity?
You want me to answer that first, Kachine?
Sure. Go ahead.
I mean, I think the identity is they are very efficient in the half court, more efficient than they probably have been. I haven't studied the numbers, but they run in the half. They run full court less, right? They don't get out in the fast break and transition as much. We've talked about why that is, and some of that I think is probably the difference of Jan versus Lisa, and some of it is personnel. But I think as a result of that, we see through the stats tonight and through the stats, even that game against BYU, you win by 20 with 23 turnovers, that the efficiency on that end and better rebounding, you can overcome maybe not as strong a ball handling in the backcourt, but you just can't deal with 30, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to average a lot of turnovers, just like the men are they're going to lose the rebounding battle every night. Every night. You just can't lose the other things you're supposed to win. Like the men can't lose free throws. The men have been losing the free throw battle. That's why they lost today. What did the women do today? Well, the other thing they didn't do well today, we haven't talked about, they had 3 threes. They can't shoot threes. Like right now, they are not a good 3-point shooting team. Iowa is not. So that's not part of their identity. The fast break is not part of their identity. Their identity is you pound it inside to Addie O'Grady, you let Lucy go to work, and you play better defense and rebound. Is that simplifying it too much, Kachine?
No. I think that, our identity is, like we said, a lot different than last year. But as a coach, you know what your weaknesses are to a degree. You can always clean them up a little, but some of those things are just is what it is. Kind of like Corey said with the men's team. You just can't lose everything else if you're going to lose that, or you're going to be a high turnover team. If you're going to be a high turnover team, then that means you got to do something else to make sure that you kind of offset that. Threes is going to be our Achilles heel. We talked about that before. We have got to start making threes. Like we don't have another choice, or it's going to be a long season for us because we don't have anything else. Yes, pounding it inside, great. But like I said before, Addison O'Grady can be taken away. Like she can. So at the end of the day, we got to figure out something else.
With that being said, though, we have not seen anybody really take Addison O'Grady away.
Nope.
There's been enough tape out there, and we've not seen any. Even tonight, I thought she was a big part of their offense down the stretch when things got a little bit. I know when she left the game, I'm like, man, they kind of need her out there because she picked up. How many fouls did she have?
She had 4 with plenty of time left on the clock. I don't have the exact number. Is she still doing that tendency that you guys talked about before where if somebody's getting right behind her and putting their body between her and a basket, she won't look up to make that post move for the bucket. She'll just pass it off to somebody else. I saw that a few times tonight. Has that gone down?
It's gone down. It's not where I would like it to be, but it's gone down because I've seen games where I'm like, oh, okay, but there were times in the game where she reverted a little bit back to old Addie. And I'm not sure if it was just because she was like, oh, the moment was a little big, in the sense of that. But I have no complaints when it comes to Addie at all in that aspect. So like I said before, you can always front her. Just make sure you have weak side help. Like it's not the worst thing in the world. You just got to make sure you have weak side help. Or you have a player who's as big as Addie, and then we see what happens then.
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. I'm sorry I didn't hear a lot of the responses there, but like I said, I've been battling a plumbing issue at the house, so I had to dart in and out a lot. But
no worries.
Just don't forget, Charmin Strong.
Charmin all right? Strong, baby.
Always go with the strong 2-ply, even if it causes...
Well, being that I was dealing with a washing machine, I don't know if that's going to help me or not. If the 2-ply Charmin wound up in there, we got bigger problems.
It all goes to the same pipes, Tyler. Thank you for... We appreciate it. All right. We appreciate Tyler being here as always. And a couple things here. SB says in the chat, needed Olsen and Guyton to have 2 ball handlers. Afalter looks nothing like she did last year. Not sure why Jensen wanted to use Hannah as a ball handler. This loss was on the coach. Karen Kurt, not sure why we didn't make Tennessee pay for the press by attacking the basket once we broke the press and they were lagging on offense.
That's usually how you do it.
And Pierre, this team had the lead with 3:07 to go. They lost the game in the last 3 minutes. Hannah Stolke shouldn't have been handling the ball in the backcourt with 3 minutes to go. Get the ball to the point. But Michael with a positive. What other program in women's basketball is this vested in a loss? And yeah, we've had hundreds of people here watching, tons of callers, people. 30 turnover game, and fans are still
best fan base in the country.
Comment of the night: Sean Watts says Spencer Petras only throws it out of bounds on 4th down. So I'm sorry, bit of an inside joke there, but if you watch Iowa football, not so much. So, anyways, I think that's about it. We can run through some scores here before we totally. Well, we won't run through scores. Let's run through the box score for tonight's game. We had some stats up earlier on the screen. Lucy Olson with her 23 points, 5 assists. She led all scorers. Addie O'Grady with 17. Sydney Falter with just 2 points had 8 rebounds, but 7 turnovers. The team, of course, had 30 turnovers for the day. O'Grady with her 17. Again, second leading scorer on the team. Hannah Stolke did not reach double figures in points, did have 10 on the glass, 5 assists for Hannah Stolke. The freshman played sparingly. You had 6.5 minutes for Tegan Mullaney, 4.5 for Taylor Strimlow, and 7 for Aaliyah Guyton, along with 7 for Ava Hayden. Taylor McCabe also struggled, 0 points for Taylor in 12 minutes. She had 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers, had one of her shots blocked. Kylie Feuerbach struggling offensively, 8 points. Did draw 5 fouls, got to the free throw line 4 times, made 3 of those shots, and had 2 rebounds along with 2 assists, but 4 turnovers. And she showed flashes tonight. I thought she got some looks early, Kachine, that I thought had a chance of maybe digging her out of the hole that she's been in, and she just didn't take advantage of it. She just couldn't capitalize.
Right at the beginning of the game, it was like she got 2 in 1 possession. It was wide open. They both bricked it. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, she had opportunity. You just see one of those go down, it can change things. And she did make 1, but she was 1 of 5 and just never really gathered any rhythm in this game. The Hawkeyes shooting 46%, 21% from 3. They're shooting free throws great. The men would love to have their free throw shooting. They were 83% from the free throw line. Hannah Stolke was 6 of 8 from the line. Lucy Olson 9 of 9. They needed all of those to have a shot with a game where they turned the ball over 30 times. And they also needed Tennessee to shoot sub 40%. They shot 39% from the field and 24% from 3, 69% from the free throw line. So, those are, you're seeing kind of the makeup of a game in which, you're plus whatever they were. How many times did Tennessee turn the ball over? 9. So you're plus 21 turnovers, but they were, Iowa was plus 15 on the glass. They held Tennessee to 39% from the field. They shot 69% from the foul line, shot 24% from 3. I mean, credit to Iowa's defense, but you're going to go up against teams where 30 turnovers will get you beat by 30. So, again, things to learn from, and Iowa will be back on the court on Wednesday where they'll play Iowa State. And some nice positive comments here to end
Jason.
our show. Jason, proud of our girls. They will learn and get better. Katie says they really need to get back into the transition offense, and perhaps that can help them. But personnel is big there. We've talked about that, and they just don't have the personnel that they've had in past years. Ball handling and people who like to run and gun like Caitlin, like Molly, like Kate, like Gabby, etc. Any final thoughts on the big game on Wednesday? We've got the women on Wednesday, men on Thursday, both games on FS1. Besides, it's a late tip for Kachine Alexander on the East Coast.
It should be fun. I loved it. I love this week. It's always my favorite week on both sides.
No hateful comments towards Iowa State. You're going to take the high road there?
Man, listen, we already know it's a Hawkeye State. It's nothing to talk about. It's not even like a question. So I don't it's when you already know the truth, why stoop low? It doesn't make sense.
Did you see Iowa State get throttled in the Big 12 championship game today? Did you catch that?
I did. I sure did.
Not good. So
at the end of the day, we got to do something because football clearly didn't help us. So
absolutely true. Yeah, the football team will get their bowl assignment tomorrow, folks. So stay tuned for some coverage.
Already? Jesus.
Yeah, we'll get that tomorrow, a playoff committee meeting, and they'll make their final selections with everything getting resolved tonight in college football. and we'll react to the bowl selection and be live for post-game coverage Wednesday for the women's team and Thursday for the Cyhawk game on the men's side. Actually, I'll be at that Cyhawk game on the men's side, so we'll see what happens as it relates to post-game. I don't know yet the plan with Gary, and it's not a real late tip, 6:30, so we can make something work. But Kachine Alexander, a former All-Big Ten guard and rebounding star, according to her coach, Jan Jensen. Cash, appreciate you being here as always. You're always a delight, and we love getting your insights. Wouldn't trade you for anybody, so appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Folks, for Kachine Alexander, I'm Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm and Iowa Postgame. We'll talk to you soon.